Today we're diving into a story that's really personal, but it's set against this massive, overwhelming backdrop of World War II. It's a story about love, about duty, and a choice that feels, well, just impossible. And the whole thing unfolds through these incredibly stark, urgent messages, telegrams. It's a way of communicating that feels so old now, but back then it was immediate and carried so much weight. So, let's set the scene. It's San Diego, 1942. The whole city is just buzzing, right? It's all about the war effort. But for the young man at the center of our story, Fred Seaver, the most critical battles, they weren't happening overseas. Nope, they were arriving in these little yellow envelopes right to his door. You have to remember, this is an age before texts, before emails, a telegram from home. Man, that carried a special kind of dread. And just like that, the first one arrives. It's not news about the war, not at all. It's a worry, a distant one, all the way from 3,000 miles away. A personal crisis that's about to just overshadow everything. Now, Fred, he isn't a soldier in a uniform, but his job is absolutely critical to the war effort. He's a material controller over at Roar Aircraft. Basically, his job is to make sure the assembly line for the B-24 Liberator bombers never, ever stops. He's a dedicated guy, a really important cog in this giant national machine. But a single piece of paper, it's about to bring his whole world to a screeching halt. And this is what he gets. Just look at the language here. It's so clipped, so efficient. I mean, they did that to save money. You paid by the word. Stop. But that shortness, it carries its own kind of terrible weight, doesn't it? Your father not well? What does that even mean? How sick is he? The uncertainty, it must have been just agonizing. No details, just a promise of more info to come, leaving Fred completely hanging. And here, you can really see the impossible situation he's in. His entire family, they're all together back in New Hampshire taking care of his dad. And Fred, he is completely alone on the West Coast. He's one of 6 kids, and he's the only one who's so far from home. Just caught, stuck between the new life he's building in California and this crisis that's exploding back east. Well, as you can imagine, things don't stay calm for long. What started out as this distant worry, it starts to escalate, and fast. The telegrams just keep coming, and each one is more urgent than the last. Each one is a point of no return. What's so powerful here is how this lays out a timeline, but it's really a timeline of dread. Think about it. In less than a month, Fred's entire world is turned upside down. It goes from a vague warning to a serious turn, and then the final word. Let's take a closer look at that second message. And here it is. All that vague language is gone now. It's just stark facts. Condition serious. And then, these 4 words that are just an impossible plea. Come if you can. It's a request, yeah, but it's also her acknowledging his duty. His mom knows he's doing important war work. She gets it. But her heart is breaking, and she just wants her son home. So as this terrible news is sinking in, Fred's mind just goes back in time. He tells his girlfriend Betty about this one memory. It's not some big, dramatic thing, but it's everything. It's the foundation of who he is. Just him and his dad cutting firewood. His dad teaching him things. And then this one quiet moment of praise. You're gonna be a fine man, Freddie. That's the man he's about to lose. That's what's at stake. And this right here, this is the heart of it all. This is where it all collides. His grief, his duty, and just the sheer distance. Fred is trapped between his love for his family and his service to his country, with 3,000 miles of railroad tracks separating him from where he feels he needs to be. The final telegram. It comes on Friday, March 13th. The suspense is over. Now, there's just the heavy, final weight of loss. Father passed away this morning. The funeral is on Monday in Massachusetts. The message is just as quick and just as brutal as the news itself. So who was this man at the center of all this grief? Frederick Walton Seaver Sr. He was 65 years old. A real product of his time, A lifelong worker, he made combs, worked in plastics, supported his family through the Great Depression. He was a father, and his real legacy was the family he raised. And this just perfectly shows the logistical nightmare Fred is up against. 3,000 miles. In 1942, that might as well be the moon. A train trip across the country would take 3 days. Easy. Minimum. By the time he could even think about getting there, the funeral would already be over. He's literally trapped by geography. And remember, just a week before, when that second telegram came, Fred had asked for leave, and this is what his supervisor told him. Now, it sounds harsh, but you have to understand, it wasn't meant to be cruel. It was just the reality of a nation at war. Everybody was sacrificing something, and Fred's job, building those bombers, it was considered too critical to stop, even for a dying father. So you can just feel these two immense pressures absolutely crushing him. On one side, you have his duty to his country. I mean, the work he's doing is directly supporting the soldiers overseas. The factory is running 24/7. But on the other side, you have this deep, primal duty to his family, to be there for his mom, to honor his dad, to just say goodbye. He was forced to make a choice, but really, the choice was already made for him by the war.
But even in this moment of incredible loss and isolation, Fred isn't completely alone. As he's trying to deal with his grief from so far away, his girlfriend Betty, she becomes his anchor.
Since he can't be there himself, Fred and Betty send flowers. And just look at the card. It seems like such a small thing, but the wording is huge. From Frederick Jr. and Betty. By putting her name on that card, Fred is telling the world and his family that she's part of his life now, that they're a unit, even in the middle of all this sadness. Then he gets a phone call from his mom, and it brings just a little bit of comfort. You think she might be upset, but she doesn't blame him at all. Instead, she tells him that his father was proud of him and that his absence, it's just another sacrifice for the war that they all have to make. It's this incredible moment of grace, you know? It must have lifted such an unbearable weight off his shoulders. Betty's dad, Lyle, he also chimes in with some really quiet wisdom. He doesn't give him any of those easy, cliché answers. Instead, he talks about how grief changes you. He says it's not something you just get over. It's something you learn to carry with you. It becomes part of who you are, woven right into your story. So with all this support around him, Fred starts that slow, difficult process of healing. And he starts to realize that moving forward isn't about forgetting his dad. Not at all. It's about living the kind of life his father would have been proud of. And that really brings us to the big question here, doesn't it? How do you heal from a loss that you couldn't even witness? When you don't get the closure of a funeral, when you can't grieve with your family, how do you possibly move on? Well, the answer, as it turns out, comes from Betty. Betty's answer is actually pretty simple, but it's also profound. Her answer is, you keep living. She just doesn't let him crawl into a hole of grief. She gently but firmly pulls him back into the world. They go to an amusement park to remember what it's like to laugh. They see a serious movie that kind of puts their own loss in perspective. And then she takes him for a drive to a place that will change everything. And this is the turning point. From this lighthouse, the entire world just seems to open up. It was one of those rare, perfectly clear days. And looking out at this huge view, the ocean on one side, the city, the snow-capped mountains in the distance, it helps put his own personal sadness into a much bigger context. It's a moment of pure beauty and perspective. And looking out at that view, it all just clicks for Fred. He's able to boil his father's whole life down to its simplest, most powerful core. It wasn't about being famous or rich. It was about working hard, loving your family, and leaving the world a little better than you found it. And right there, in that moment, he realizes that's what he wants too. He's not just mourning his dad anymore. He's finding his own way forward by living by his father's values. And really, that's what this whole story leaves us with. It's this reminder that a good life isn't always about the big, flashy moments. So often, it's defined by the quiet moments. Moments of integrity, of love, of resilience. Like a father putting his hand on his son's shoulder in the woods. Or a promise made between two people trying to build a future in the shadow of a war. It makes you think, doesn't it? What are the small moments that will end up defining your life?